We say that we want change, but we don't want to change.
Where I got the injury was after security dragged us off. They were very violent with us. One of the guys cursed me out, slammed me on the ground, and put his arm around my neck and was choking me out. I couldn't breathe, dragged me into a room, threw me there. So we did an action at the Metropolitan Opera. Lincoln Center itself has been historically funded and is currently funded. Like, a lot of their top donors are engaged in this murderous on the ballet. It's called the David Koch Ballet. Koch and his brother Charles, enormous petrochemical oil barons, right, who have funded Rupert Murdoch, climate change denialism, funding the Heritage Foundation and a variety of other nonprofits that designed Project 2025, that is being executed right now, and this blueprint for how to install fascism in the United States of America.
Is something standing between you and your happiness? It was for me. I had to face my depression and the constant negative self-talk. Therapy helped me realize I deserve to be happy. That's why this podcast is called I Choose Health, because I made the choice to heal and I want to share that with you. As a gift to you, we've partnered with BetterHelp as our sponsor to help you start your own healing journey. We all face moments when life feels overwhelming, whether it's stress, anxiety, or just feeling stuck. Talking to someone can make a real difference. And that's where our sponsor BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp offers professional online therapy that's convenient, affordable, and entirely on your schedule. You can connect with a licensed therapist by video, phone, or even chat, whatever works best for you. Let our sponsor BetterHelp support you on your journey to better mental health. You can get 10% off your first month by going to betterhelp.com/iChooseHealth. That's betterhelp.com/iChooseHealth for 10% off your first month. Take the first step toward feeling better today.
As a teenager, I decided to live better, so I gave up the meat, eggs, and cheddar. At 20 and 30, I wanted more, so I strengthened my mind and my core. Living a life that is healthier and wealthier because I choose health.
So, if you've grown up in New York City, you kind of understand the impact of the Cuomo family franchise or dynasty. And so, when I saw our next guest, the impersonation that he was doing, I know the first thing that came to my mind was like, who's out here doing like an Andrew Cuomo impersonation? So today, we have Zivon, is it Toplin? We have Zivon Toplin with us. Welcome to the I Choose Health podcast and the
High Chief Fitness podcast.
So Zivon, we are really thankful for you being here today. Really
Super
looking forward.
excited. And Zivon, I like, as Steph mentioned, you're an impersonator, but you're much more than that because you're also a political activist via your impersonation. So that's such a more layered, deep thing than just doing, impersonations. So we'd definitely like to pick your brain regarding your experiences, future projects, and essences of being in this world, which is, it's gutsy, it's important, it's zeitgeist defining. Thank you for being on the show, brother.
Thanks so much. Yeah. So give us your background, because, for people who are saying, okay, you're doing an Andrew Cuomo impersonation, like, did you grow up in New York? Like, what was that like if you were growing up in New York? And politically, what were you seeing that maybe led to you wanting to get into this work, both in activism and also the impersonation work?
I did grow up in New York City. I was involved in some activist groups when I was in high school that we were mostly focused at the time on community organizing and urban farming. So that was probably my first foray on the activist side. In terms of in terms of how that eventually became, 15 years later, me impersonating Andrew Cuomo, it's I guess a bit of a journey, but I also have a background in theater. So, and I was doing theater for a long time. I have been, and I've also been doing comedy in the improv world and writing for a while. I've been really interested in activist art, or specifically guerrilla art, for a while, and I think that more recently, when I've been working with this organization, Climate Defiance, this was just one of those ideas for political direct action that I thought would be really funny, and we just decided to try it out, and it ended up really working out really well. So that's yeah, it was really awesome.
Speak about Climate Defiance, because like I wanted to kind of speak on their particular goals and what they're working towards. What do they see in terms of a future for like America, New York? Like what are they looking at? What are their goals?
So Climate Defiance, just to give a little bit of a background, is a nonviolent direct action activist group. And basically our goal is to bring about the end of the fossil fuel era, right? So climate change is it's happening right now. It's really devastating. It's only going to become more devastating as it accelerates, and really threatening the lives of everyone on Earth. It's certainly the most vulnerable people first. You know, people living in the global South, people who are poor, and as the founder of Climate Defiance, Michael Greenberg, has said before, the people who should be leading us away from this crisis are fiddling as the world burns, right? People are getting very, very, very rich as they sacrifice the well-being and safety of the rest of humankind. So Climate Defiance, we don't do petitions, we don't do nice, polite coalition letters. We're done asking nicely. What we will do is we will go and engage in deliberately disruptive protests. So for instance, if there is an oil exec or an oil financier or a politician who's taking money from the oil industry, having some sort of event, we will show up and we will tell the truth about what is going on there. And they often do not like that, but we'll also record that and share that information, because a lot of, share those videos online, because a lot of people don't actually know even the names or the details of a lot of these individuals who are engaged in this sort of just these this murders, yeah, these crimes against it, like deeply murderous. Ecocide, I've heard before, and I think the goal is to agitate for change and also build a movement in the public consciousness. If you, on so many polls of people in the United States, the priority in terms of like ranking priorities for how people in the States vote, like climate change is very comparatively very, very low, but of course is a huge issue, and yeah, I think what we're trying to do is just build a mass movement of people who are going to stand up and defy, hence Climate Defiance, and say, hey, we're going to choose to live. We're going to choose for the planet to live. So that's what Climate Defiance does. More recently, or I should say before, a lot of the disruptions are very serious in their nature, and I think they're all serious, right? But they're very much stand up, spit the facts about, the person we're disrupting or the organization that we're disrupting. More recently, we and I've been experimenting with a comedic approach, and out of that, the Andrew Cuomo was born. Just Andrew Cuomo being a candidate funded by, billionaires such as Rupert Murdoch. I mean, head of Fox, who's responsible for the dissemination of more climate denialist information. And I mean, definitely in the top 5, if not the top person for that. I mean, the Walton family, right? I mean, direct funding by oil execs, right? This is someone who's deeply embedded with an establishment that is committed to fossil fuels and committed to, ecocide, to use your term. So we wanted to, and a very, it was a very prominent campaign. It's obviously my hometown, so that's how we ended up getting involved.
It sounds like you're going to the roots of exposing these James Bond villains. Because what is, if you really get to the root of it, what is more sacred than this planet? Myself, even though I didn't really participate, because in my generation, with that, I respect you guys so much for going out there, risking your bodies. We're going to get into your injury in a bit. When I was younger, I got into the plant medicine community, the shamanic community. I've done all sorts of events for the Amazon so I wasn't quite at the level of what you're doing, which is so admirable, but I understand. There's a Buddhist saying, one of the most important things for a man is to plant the tree, even if you'll never sit underneath its shade. You gotta think, you gotta reverberate for the future generations. And then you have these powers to be that come here, which are now, thankfully, with smartphones and the internet era, are being exposed. Whereas before, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, all publications were, what was it, like 2 or 3 families that kind of controlled all the news. And if you got a little too sassy, next thing you know, you were jumping out of a 30th floor window. Nowadays you can't do that because you got the cameras everywhere. And yeah, you got some stuff manipulated here and there, but for the most part, you go down the right rabbit hole, you're gonna find a carrot. And so when I saw what you guys are doing, and of course it's funny also. So the fact is that you're doing such an important thing. You're inspiring the younger generations, not from pontificating on a soapbox, or from going out there and being some manic street preacher and just, talking about X way, my way or the highway. Your way is the right way, because without the climate, without this planet, there's nothing else. And already the people that are ruining this planet are prognosticating setting up on Mars or the moon, right? What's happening to us? We have, each one of us, we have microplastics in us right now. What an abomination to have a power in today's day and age to alchemize anything. And you're creating plastic, and you're creating all these carcinogenic products. For what? For a few extra dollars?
Yeah.
How much more money do you need? Once you get to $1 billion, do you really need more money? Okay, you get a statue. You win in capitalism. Congratulations, Yeah. Jesus, give back. That's like, we'll get into it later, but like what Billie Eilish did recently, I don't know if you saw, like so she donated $11.5 million to kids, I believe, from her year tour, and she put Elon Musk on the spot, saying, you see, I'm a lot poorer than you are, relative. I'm donating a good chunk of my money. I think it was like 20% of her whole, just to help this world plant the trees that the next generations need to be a utopia, to get back into Eden, if you want to get metaphorical. But while these motherfuckers are trying to cast us out of Eden, they're instead of blooming this beautiful planet and combining, they're setting blights. So this is why I was so passionate about having you, and the way that you're bringing this utmost important topic to the public via comedy, via class, via being heroic, going out there and risking incarceration, let's talk about what happened to you on Friday, right? If you'd like to say a few words.
So we did an action at the Metropolitan Opera on Friday, and so Lincoln Center. And I would like to just add right at the top, I'm in full support of the artists performing at Lincoln Center, right? A lot of incredible dancers, musicians, actors, designers, etc. Love. I really want to always say that I support these, artists who are working so hard. Lincoln Center itself has been historically funded and is currently funded. Like a lot of their top donors are engaged in this murder is bullshit that I mentioned before. So if you look at, not in the opera, but in the complex on the ballet, it's called the David Koch ballet, right? So David, now deceased Koch, and his brother Charles, enormous petrochemical oil barons, right, who have funded enormous amounts of, again, like Rupert Murdoch, climate change denialism, funding the Heritage Foundation and a variety of other nonprofits that designed Project 2025, that is being executed right now, and this blueprint for how to install fascism in the United States of America. They're massive funders, or historically massive funders of Lincoln Center. Also, if you look on Lincoln Center's website, their major donors include banks like J.P. Morgan Chase, one of the largest fossil fuel financiers, BlackRock, same with them, right? We got Boston Consulting Group on there, right? You also have the Walton family. So you have many organizations who are directly responsible for the destruction of our democracy and also our planet, able to launder their names by saying, "Oh, look, we're donating to these artistic institutions." And of course, I want these artistic institutions to be funded, but there seems like there should be a way to fund art for the public that doesn't involve the destruction of our planet and giving these guys a free pass. Like, oh, they've given us. I mean, they've given us this. They've funded this center that is going to be underwater if we allow their objectives to be met. So that's the background for the action. Interestingly, the production that's currently at, or one of the productions that's currently at the Metropolitan Opera is Carmen, which is a classic opera. So it's not a new opera, but the design of the opera is meant to reflect the current political moment. So, for instance, the soldiers are all dressed as border patrol agents or ICE agents. Part of it takes place outside of a factory, so it's made to look like a border town like Maquiadora, possibly forced labor, has a chain link fence with barbed wire on it. So there's this very overt fascistic imagery in the play. And it's ironic because it's this commentary on this fascistic moment that we are experiencing politically, but it's also funded by the Lincoln Center, is where it's being performed, is funded by the very people who are also designing and funding that same moment. So we decided to get tickets to the show, and I dressed up like a stage manager with a headset and all theater blacks, and one of my friends, he dressed up in the costume as the soldiers in the all green sort of military outfit. And at one particular moment in the show where we see all of this imagery and there's this big crowd of soldiers and stuff, we got up on the stage and we decided to sing our own song of our own design that called out these various financial institutions and so forth. And he sang, the musical's in French, and at the opera you can see on the backs of the seats, or sometimes, I know they projected on the back the subtitles in English of what the singers are singing. And so he got in the middle of the stage pretending that he was part of the show, and I held up on my signs the subtitles that I dropped as he was singing it. The first sign was "We love Lincoln Center," and the second one was "But they're in bed with fascists," and the demand was "Break with Coke, break with these various ecocidal interests." and and yeah, that was our mission. We also had someone in the audience that after we were finished with ours, after we got pulled off, he stood up and delivered a much more straightforward, or I should say traditional call to action to the audience. It was funny because the actors kept acting like they kept doing the musical number that they were doing for quite a while. I actually did not think we were going to get as much time as we were going to, because I was off to the side with the signs and he was right in the middle, in the center of the stage, surrounded by all these people. Like, they weren't expecting it. There's no one in their ear saying, no, cut it, cut it, cut it. And they kept going. They dragged him off, and then I ran on with the sign and I started dancing. We made a lot of silly, dance moves to go along with that. Where I got the injury was after security dragged us off. They were very violent with us. One of the guys, cursing me out, slammed me on the ground and put his arm around my neck and was choking me out. I couldn't breathe. They dragged me into a room. They threw me there. They were pushing, and we got on video some of this too. And I have the audio recording, because we had the audio recording of it, and the video of them, fucking with the necks, like grabbing the back of the neck and really swinging them. Which I don't have to tell you guys involved in that world. When you're messing with someone's neck, I mean, you can really, you can kill someone. So that. That was definitely scary. There was one point where they were demanding ID from us. We're like, you're not the cops. Like, we're not required to provide ID. If the cops come and they want us to give the ID, we'll do it. But you are not the cops. And one of them was like, give me your ID or I'll snap your wrist. It was fucking crazy. And then, the audience, some of the audience, I know, I actually didn't realize a couple people I knew were at the show and thought it was funny. Needless to say, a lot of the people in the audience did not think it was funny and were really booing vehemently, especially the third disruptor who was, giving his speech, which is why we thought that would happen. And so we had the last two signs of the subtitles were, yes, boo us, you're right, fuck democracy, fuck the planet, right? I don't want to, it's not my pride and joy to ruin someone's night out, ruin the actor's time, ruin the director, all the people who worked really hard in that. But there is such a thing as emergencies. And if we're blowing past the goals set by the Paris Climate Accords and still we're just like, fuck it, I guess we're not going to do anything. Sometimes you do have to, if there's a fire, you do have to shout fire in a crowded theater, and there is a fire. So anyway, that's what we did on Friday. We got arrested, spent the night in jail. We're there for about 24 hours, and so I got out late last night. That's what happened. That's what we were just doing the other day.
That's crazy, man.
So I got out last night.
Yeah, it's crazy. You're here with us today.
Literally, the day of thank you for. Jeez.
No, and this might sound like a naive question, but as you were talking about these billionaires who are putting all this money behind climate denialism, what do you think they stand to gain from putting their money behind this?
It's a good question, right? Because their children are gonna, maybe they can build some sort of bunker that's gonna make them immune to the effects of it. But the global chaos that is currently unfolding and that is going to unfold even further as crops fail, more intense storms occur. All the myriad of really water stress. It's going to be really destructive to everyone living. I pure greed that like $1 billion isn't enough money. I get that we need to have this this growth of profits at all costs, enhance their wealth now. I mean, maybe some of them who are older think that they are gonna not be around to see the effects of it. I mean, a lot of them will, in terms of corporations, like, you know, say J.P. Morgan Chase, for instance, or, you know, any number of these banks that finance or asset managers that finance you know, oil projects or so forth. They are obligated to provide. They're legally obligated to provide profit to their shareholders, right? So the system that we've set up makes it impossible for these institutions to make decisions that do not maximize this, I mean, clearly short-term bottom line of their shareholders, right? So I think, you know, definitely. I mean, there's the image of this mustache twirling, you know, this James Bond villain, which for some of these folks, I would say, at least it seems pretty accurate. But I think as long as we have this system that puts the growth of profits over the needs of people, that is exactly what's going to be pursued. You know?
I saw this meme a little while ago. It was a post-apocalyptic world, and there was like a CEO type with a tie, and there's like, you know, carnage everywhere, and there's people sitting around the fire, you know, modern times, and then his thought bubble says, "Yeah, it might look horrible right now, guys, but for a brief moment in time, we made a lot of money to our shareholders."
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean,
So what is the Buddhist saying? An ounce of pleasure causes a pound of pain.
Interesting.
These, you said the perfect word, greed. It's one of the 7 deadly vices for a reason. Greed, once you really tap into the root essence of it, it's an insatiable force. It's a sickness. There's not enough, and in order to, it's a dragon coveting the wealth, you know, hoarding, and you're gonna do that no matter what, cutthroat, and it's a long generational thing that's passed on, especially for these scions and all these incredibly wealthy individuals. Both Steph and I, we train a lot of who's out there. So, you know, we pick up a little bit of here and there, and just like the energy of how things work. And I gotta be honest with you, from my experience in 20 plus years in the industry, it's a combination of ignorance and just conditioning, being brought up like that. Of course, there's just some sociopathic fuckers who are just doing anything, you know, leaving, you know, Mad Maxing or whatever. But it's such a deep greed, such a deep issue. And so that's why it's so important for you guys is to articulately as possible bring it to the surface, so that people who are on the fence, who don't know about it, they're going to start that domino effect going forward.
Yeah, I think there are a couple steps to it. There's getting that information out there, right? There's obviously been a movement to suppress a lot. I mean, specifically around, say, climate change, right? Suppress the science and suppress the access to knowledge about it. Certainly, there's for the scale of the problem, the level of and the tone of the media coverage of the issue is very, very, very subdued. I just want to say one thing about that meme that you brought up. That's funny. One of the groups that I'm really inspired by. This is a group called the Yes Men. Have you ever heard of these guys? They're these activist artists. They pull stunts. They've been around for more than 20 years now. But they pull these comedic activist stunts. And one of the things they did, I think I forget what year, but sometime in the aughts, they did this prank where they posed as these PR agents, I believe it was, pitching to these CEOs what they called survivaballs, which were these inflatable balls that were 6 foot diameter that a CEO could go inside, and it looked really ridiculous. Their hands were sticking out, and their faces were just peeking out. And the idea was that in the event of a climate disaster, the CEO would be able to live inside the survival ball and continue to work. And they pitched it to this room full of corporate folks. I know they were. I forget if they were posing as representatives of Halliburton or they were pitching to people at Halliburton. I'll have to read up on it again. But they thought eventually people would catch on that this was clearly satire, because it was real world people that they were pitching to, and they would tell them to get the hell out of there. But actually, everyone was really into it and really taking notes. And apparently, one of them asked, like, "Oh yeah, like, are there any applications for terrorist attacks or something like that?" And they just kept on going with the whole presentation. They had their whole video or PowerPoint set up, and they're really funny. But it is I don't want to say beyond satire, but seeing those moments where that meme is totally, I mean, that mindset is at least pervasive. I mean, it's pervasive seemingly pervasive in the minds of people involved in these organizations, or at least in the ethos and mission of these organizations.
It's an addiction. Greed's an addiction. Even though I was lucky enough to never know greed, I have a background of addiction, substance abuse issues. And it's a very similar hydra, right? With addiction, at least, you don't have a flying fuck about tomorrow. You just want to chase that dragon, feel good about now, try to get even higher and higher, and all hell could break loose. It doesn't matter. That's the ramifications. You'll deal with it when you get there. I'll cross the bridge when I get there. It sounds like a lot of these greedy motherfuckers, the ones who are ruining this world, they also have that, well, I'll make $1 billion now, and then if, my plastics or my chemicals in the water or the cancer I put in Doritos or whatever is going to make people sick, let the lawyers deal with it, or, let the doctors deal with it. Not realizing the negative reverberation, this seismic wave of karma that it's being sent to this planet. And it's maddening to watch, and those people are obviously the root cause of it. But what really pisses me off and what really makes me respect you guys is because you're helping to get them, is the people who are, people who just want to brush everything underneath the carpet. It's like, well, I remember hearing someone saying, I think it was an article, that the sun's going to go out. This was before in the 90s even. It was supposed to go out in like 100 years. And I hear a lot of people as a kid saying, well, we're not going to be alive, so who cares, Your kids, your grandkids are going to be alive. Don't you want to leave them? Why do you give kids trust funds, or you give them, land, or you give them morals and wisdom? Is you want to prepare them to have the best human experience possible. And you're here when you have all of these, I'm sorry, I don't know what else to call them, demons, who are trying to bring hell at all costs just to have a little bit more whatever. I mean, how many Lear jets do you need? I mean, like, seriously, like, for what cause? And then just brainwashing others. And I'm not political. I'm not either left or right. I'm a person of integrity, I like to see. But I think both sides need to come together and realize what's the greatest cause here. This isn't talking about, like a show or a sports team or give them bread and circuses kind of thing. This is your planet, which you're talking about. This is proof that this planet is teetering on the brink of being not hospitable. Like being a dangerous, dark side Marvel dystopian universe.
Yeah, I mean, and that the effects are arriving now, right? Like when you have several 100-year storms in, the span of a few years, or a city burns down, right? And I mean, certainly in the United States, elsewhere as well. I mean, all over the world, just insane floods, right? Water stresses, food stresses, right? This is something that is certainly affecting many, 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 many people across the world today. And I think that there's this procrastination impulse that, oh, because the absolute worst, most hellish events are in the future, we can ignore lives being destroyed today. Yeah.
You know, I think one thing that the civil rights movement did well, especially back in the 50s and 60s, was realizing the role of media and realizing how it could have an impact for change. And so I'm seeing from everyone that I interviewed, from Ace Anderson, who's a vegan activist, right, who's also actor, comedian, rapper, all those all into one. Um, so I want to know for you why the route of comedy for your activism, and then also why Andrew Cuomo?
I mean, I think bringing up the civil rights movement is a really important example, especially when you consider the reaction at the time that it was met with across the globe, and also how much the people were involved in it were really risking when they were doing those things. I mean, when polled in 1963, 1964, huge numbers of people in the United States thought, oh, these folks they're really hurting their cause, or I don't believe in what they're doing, or Martin Luther King or whoever, any of these activists are terrorists, right? They're dangerous to society. They did it, 63, 64, same poll, same answer. Meanwhile, this is the time when, Martin Luther King gives his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech that now everyone in the United States, if they don't, know the whole speech, they've definitely heard of this as this momentous, this momentous series of actions. And I think that it is okay and necessary to have these moments where it might spark this backlash, this really angry backlash, because a lot of time, like, society doesn't want to change. Much of society doesn't want to change. We want to stay comfortable. We either say we don't want that, or now's not the time. It's really tough. But when you think about people's movements across history, they've had to make some noise and make and do things that do things that were going to bother the establishment, and it wasn't just going to be your life as usual, just regular daily life. No, we're working to change those things. So all these things that we really enjoy today, right? So obviously the advances of the civil rights or Black Power movements, right? The universal right to vote, union or right to unionize, various labor protections, right? Like, those had to be really, really fought for in a way where the people involved in that were really sacrificing a lot, and were coming up against huge powers. And I think that sometimes today, when we look back on those movements, we think of them as we try to sanitize them and make it look like, you're talking about the civil rights thing. One day Rosa Parks just stood up and stood up for justice as an individual, and then she experienced this backlash, but then everything suddenly was okay, and that's the day that racism ended. Instead of like recognizing this, I mean, you're talking about using the media, right? An organized event where it was planned that Rosa Parks at this moment was going to engage in this. I mean, political theater. You could even cause it. This disruption of the status quo. Sorry, I'm getting around to the comedy, I promise. But I really am. But I want to shout out the folks who everyone whose shoulders we're standing on. I think art in general. I just read this really great book called A People's Art History of the United States. You know, there's the Howard Zinn People's History, and then there's this book I read recently called, I read in college, I was rereading recently, called The People's Art History of the United States, which talks about the art that was involved in all these activist movements historically, or yeah, just people's movements generally. So it has indigenous arts movements, it has Chicano arts movements, it has women's movements, it has queer movements, it has stuff from Black Panther posters, it has really, really anti-war movements, and all of the artwork, whether it was visual or theatrical or so forth, that was really a crucial part of all these movements. I think comedy, and it's all really powerful, I think comedy is uniquely poised because engaging in it makes you feel good, and it brings joy. And when I'm all for the serious art too. It's very powerful to have someone feel joyous and empowered and motivated, to inspired to join with other people collectively and you know, fight for justice and change wherever those struggles exist. I also think, I know you mentioned Buddhism a couple times. I think one thing that I find in, you know, almost a maybe Buddhistic sense about comedy is really a lot of it hinges on illuminating these rigidities, or these things that we think are permanent or solid, for perhaps being not so solid or not so permanent, you know? And I think that these things that people face in their struggles are often seen as, well, that's just the way things are. People say, oh, that's human nature. Oh, you can't change that. You know, this idea that we don't want a better world for all people is impossible. Like, I mean, as it relates to any sort of struggle.
You know, I was thinking about, so when I was in college, I was both a history and religion major. And so one of the books that I read in my religion class was a book called Escape from Freedom by Eric Fromm. Escape from Freedom. And his idea, his thinking was that, you know, you look throughout history, there were always these disruptors who, you know, you look at like Martin Luther, the German monk, right? John Brown, Jan Hus in the Czech Republic. These individuals would always come with a different understanding of whether it was the Bible or whether it was the way of thinking about things politically. And people oftentimes would a lot of people would be receptive to it, but then a lot of times people would kind of hit back at it. And I think his major thing was that people were afraid to kind of stand out with this particular thing, or stand out as a leader. People tend to want to fall into being led. So like as a society, we always want somebody to look to lead us. And the unfortunate thing is the people that we tend to look to are usually people who are very corrupt. And so as you were talking about that, you know, I just started thinking about that particular book, and you know, it's just interesting how as a society we say that we want change, but we don't want to change. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, and not to get too religious, but like the Bible talks about that if any man is to become a Christian or whatever, you know, he must become a new creation, right? So it's like all things have to pass away. So if it means we want to see a better world, better things, you know, we need to make these internal changes. We need to make these changes that are going to help society move forward. You know, so, and I think that's one of the things where a lot of people have that difficulty of just standing out as leaders. And so I really love what your group is doing, especially as you're working with Climate Defiance, of really highlighting the fact that, like, hey, the climate of our world as it's being impacted by us, how we're destroying it, and how we're allowing these quote unquote leaders who are standing to gain from it financially, significantly benefited from it, are leading us and telling us like, well, it's okay to do this, it's okay to do that. And this is why, I'm really thankful for the work that you guys are doing.
Thank you.
As someone that considers myself to be a student of the great George Carlin, I really much appreciate what you said. Really resonated with me was getting that rigidity of what you're doing. Comedy is a sacred samurai art. It's been for thousands of years because it's used. When you talk about alchemy and you talk something about like the source, the philosopher's stone turning lead into gold, it's actually a lot of times a mental or an energetic thing. It's transmuting, transmogrifying, which they talk about in the Bible. Is taking something quote unquote negative or dense and easing it into a much more fluid vibration. And so what you're doing, you're simultaneously juxtaposing the seriousness with these political issues, with climate change. But what you're doing is mention the worst thing, at least what I see with my younger clients, my younger fitness clients, is to tell them what to do, Instead, you got to set a foundation, and the masters know how to utilize certain elements, comedy, humor being one of them, to ease the right word, the right way into the epoch. So what you're doing simultaneously is you're having the best of both worlds. You're having the seriousness of the movement, but you're also doing this via a very fluid, positive thing, which is comedy. So you're getting the attentions of all the younger people who are there, starting like getting Kindle on fire. That's how you do it nowadays. As much as it's such a blessing right now, we have social media, and you guys are taking advantage from it. I, at my old age, am just starting to learn. They joke around that I'm not very technologically literate, because I've been doing my, Buddhist studies and my Zen meditations and sobering up from my rock and roll days, and I kind of like avoided technology for a while and just doing my thing. But getting now, I feel like Fry in Futurama, waking up and then just seeing this whole new world.
I feel the same way. I mean, I often feel. I mean, right before we started, I had to upload some of the audio from the Met action the other day, and I was just asking our camera guy to help me out with that. I mean, I'm pretty new to social media myself. For me, I'm more interested in it as a tool for this sort of work than necessarily personal consumption of that. And I certainly have concerns about who owns social media, how social media is how it is run. I will also say it is clearly a powerful tool for getting this sort of information out to folks. I know, I remember part of your question. I knew there was a part of your question that I did not address earlier, Stefan, but
it was just,
why specifically Cuomo? Well, this race, I mean, definitely had a lot of national attention. This mayoral race, I mean, specifically, why did we target candidate like Andrew Cuomo? I talked a little about that before, although I also did not mention the various, the multiple sexual harassment issues, which is pretty critical. I think what we wanted to do with that, send this message that putting forward candidates like that is not acceptable anymore. And we don't have to accept it. Like we don't have to accept that putting forward this guy is like, well, that's just the way it is. And it's funny because we made it comedic by the scenario, the design of the action, but I didn't actually say anything that wasn't true. I did not make up. I didn't even exaggerate for the most part. Like what was up, right? Because if you're sending this message that I'm going to take money from all these billionaire interests, right? The very first line, other than me saying I'm the real Andrew Cuomo, the first line I say is, if you're a billionaire, I'll support your rights. If you're an oil exec, I will support your rights. We wanted to on this one level saying it was obviously a joke, but then saying that, wait a second, I am actually the real Andrew Cuomo because I'm actually saying the real shit about him. And we're using that to illuminate. Like, in fact, the real imposter is the person telling you that they have the interests of people of the city or working people of the city, in mind with their campaign.
Definitely want to have the people hear your Andrew Cuomo. And I brought a somewhere here. Oh, there's my red beret, so we can have a post-election kind of little interview with Steph interview, man.
Yeah.
So,
Cuomo, I mean, I'm speaking of Cuomo now. When you started this campaign, did you think at all about your impact, not just your impact, but like your impact, your family's impact on New York on a whole? Did you consider that at all?
I think when you are the scion of a political dynasty, you want to leave your mark on the city, your state. And the mark I would like to leave is making this city better for the people who don't already need my help at all. The people who are the most powerful, the wealthy. That is who I want to represent. Those are the people I am committed to standing up for.
So even though they make up only like 1% of New York, you want to stand up for those individuals?
I have many donors who have wanted me to only stand up for the top 0.5 of that 1%, but I will be standing up for the whole 1%, and that is a promise.
What do you think about this, Curtis?
listen, Stephen, Andrew Cuomo.
It's Stephen, by the way.
Stephen, Andrew Cuomo, it's your fault that they elected Zoltan Mamdani, okay? Zoltan, it's your fault that they elected him. Let me tell you something. Listen, Stephen, I'm going to tell you something. Back in 1982, when they shot me 17 times because I wouldn't accept any bribes from them, and I took my 12 cats and I went to Tijuana to hide out a little bit while the Gambinos were doing that thing, what was the question you were asking me?
Well, I just want to know what you thought about what,
Well, Andrew Cole, it's his fault that they elected Zoltan Mamdani. It's his fault that they're going to bring the communists here. They're going to get all the villains out of Archon. I worked for 20 years to get those villains back into that insane asylum. They're going to come with this communist. They're going to release all these villains to the public. And what about the rat situation? Who's going to fix the rat situation? Are you going to do it, Stephen? Andrew Cuomo, I knew your father. I knew your great-grandfather. We came here on the Mayflower, and then when I came back here, I said, I'm going to turn New York City into what it really needs to be. A cat-loving, bodega-happy, train city. You go over here and you work with these billionaires. They give me billions of dollars, Stephen. They offered me billions of dollars, and I said, no. I got shot 42 times. I'm not going to accept no.
I think your focus on cats is misguided, Curtis. I think the danger for this city is people being able to afford their rent, free buses, childcare. These are things that will destroy the fabric of New York. And until you see that, we will never be safe.
20 years ago, the organizers of the Street Fighter tournament, they come to me. I was known as Rolento back then. They come to me and they said, Rolento, we need you to participate. And I gave them a whole, Stephen, you gotta listen to this. I gave them a whole, I said, you can't use guns? Because I got shot 17 times. Can you imagine that? I was protected. The Al Capone came to me once and shot me. And I compared to the Street Fighter tournament. And I said, when I finished it, I came in third place. This little Spaniard by the name of Vega won. But I came back to New York City. I changed my name to Curtis.
All right. So, Andrew, I do have to ask, because There are a couple of things that I think personally I was a little concerned about, especially with your campaign and you running as mayor. I wonder to what extent the people's view of you, how important is that to you? Because you're talking about the billionaires, you're talking about the millionaires, and representing them. Like how people view you, especially with the sexual harassment stuff, the stuff with COVID. Like, are you okay with your current public perception?
I only serve the very wealthiest of New Yorkers. It is unfortunate that the bottom 99% cannot see how good I would be for the city, but if they don't like me, so be it. I know where I am well liked.
I mean, I know Chris likes you, but your brother. Uh, I mean, but what do you think of the direction now of Mamdani? What direction do you think he's going to take New York in? Seeing that, I saw how, you guys dealt with in the debate. You seem to be very dismissive to some of the things he was saying, but he was elected mayor. So what do you think the direction he's going to take New York in right now?
Well, I want to say this, and I want you to understand that my answer is not only based on my Islamophobia. It is also based on my firm belief that New Yorkers do not have a right to afford the city that they live in. He will make it an affordable hell. Total hell. If people do not have a gun to their head for the rent every single month, total chaos and disarray will ensue. We cannot allow that. We must resist the Mandumi administration. Mandangi?
Mamdani.
Manduni. Zoltan Manduni.
How do we? Can we get a pronunciation?
I'm pretty sure.
Coach on this.
I'm pretty sure I'm saying it correctly.
I'm pretty sure.
He's from
I-
Bangladesh. Bangladesh. You pronounce the I. It's a hard I. It's Mamdami.
He's from Uganda, but it's okay. So Kurt,
Who's from Uganda?
we'll skip to the next question. So, Curtis, for you, how do you feel about the direction that Mamdani is going to take us in?
Stephen, one thing I gotta tell you, I've been doing this for a long time. I like two things. I like hoarding cats, and I like cleaning up rats. Andrew Cuomo, he likes two things. He slaps fannies and he kills grannies. Those are the only two things that he knows how to do. He's a scion of a wealthy person. They got into politics. You know who I come from? I come from the people that took John Wick away from the voyage. I work with the same people. I was born in the Continental. You know the Continental? I was born right there. They had to take me to Tijuana once. I had to lay low. There was a donkey show. I met a drag performer by the name of Lots of Love over there, and she just had 4 more shows to go before they would take her out of there. I'm telling you, she did good. But what was your question about Bangladesh?
Well, it was about Mamdani and the direction that he's going to take New York.
To what, communism? We have another Chairman Mao over here. What's he trying to do here with the public buses? Buses aren't supposed to be public. I don't understand any of this. It's like a wacko world right now. It's like the Twilight Zone we're living in. We have Andrew Cuomo. We have rats on the street. We should have more cats. The cats would eat the rats. You don't need a rat czar. You need more cats. Everyone should own 3 cats. That's what I would do if I was president of New York.
Interesting. I mean, it is a mayoral race, but and you do know John Wick is a fictional character, right?
I know him very well.
Got it. All right. So, well, guys, this has been great. Zivon, thank you so much again for being here with us. And Andre, aka Curtis Sliwa. No, this was great, guys. This was funny, but we do need these laughs. This is a part of health as well. Just being able to laugh, and scientifically, there's data showing this laughter and happiness how that leads to one's improved quality of health.
It lowers stress hormones, lowers cortisol levels, raises dopamine, oxytocin. It's biological. Medicine. Laughter is medicine, I believe I heard said a few times.
I had a friend who she's a clown, and she would perform in hospitals for children, and would go to these children's hospitals, and she would perform with them, and it was really beautiful hearing her stories. And I know the kids really loved her. It was really cool.
The world needs more of this wonderful person. And I'm going to leave with one more Buddhist saying. There's 3 things that don't stay hidden for long: the sun, the moon, and the truth. As long as the truth keeps coming up, as long as people keep following the course of integrity, the world's going to get better. And this is why it's so important to, in the most dignified way imaginable, to keep getting this world better and to educating others as to why these draconian, greedy ways are not working anymore. If I may quote another famous person from the past, ain't nobody got time for that. You know? So,
Well, guys, this has been great again, and this is the I Choose Health podcast and the
High Chi Fitness Podcast.
just remind you that choosing health is about choosing power, possibility, and purpose. And guys, just remember to comment, like, and subscribe, and we're really again thankful for your support.
Welcome to week 35 of 52 Choices. This week's choice is simple but powerful. Before every meal, pause and ask yourself, am I hungry, or am I bored or stressed? Here's why this matters. Research shows that up to 75% of overeating is triggered by emotions and not true physical hunger. When we're stressed, the brain releases cortisol, which increases cravings for high-fat, high-sugar foods. When we're bored, the brain seeks dopamine, pushing us towards snacking for quick stimulation. Your body also gives clear biological hunger signals: a slow build of stomach emptiness, gentle hunger pangs, low energy, or difficulty focusing. Emotional hunger feels different. It comes on suddenly and often craves a specific comfort food. Pausing for just 3 seconds rewires your brain's decision pathway. Neuroscientists call this interrupting the cue habit loop. That tiny moment of awareness activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that helps you make intentional, long-term decisions. This week, every time you reach for food, check in. Is this physical hunger or emotional hunger? You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to get aware. That awareness is the transformation.